And now for part 2 of episode 4. Let's continue with part 2,
Okay,
and let's hear what happens.
Yep. So I did promise Joe a finder's fee from the sale of one of the games for telling me fair play to him because he let me get this. So I go and I'm just nailing the crap out of Pop the Lock, Quick Drop. I'm cycling between cards like Card A, Pop the Lock, Card A, Quick Drop, or Card B, Pop the Lock, Card B, Quick Drop. Playing some other games when somebody wants to get on both of those. Tipping blocks would still pay off every once in a while. Tower of Tickets, which is one of Joe's main games, which is basically Zombie Snatcher on steroids, has a giant cone or puck or whatever you want to call it that's worth 1,000 tickets. There were 1,000, 1,750, and 2,500 in the machine. So just to pick up speed, even though it was costing me more on average to win, when I had Quick Drop and Pop the Lock both paying off, I went to Tower of Tickets and knocked 1,000 out of it. Sometimes it was 2 plays, sometimes it was 10 plays, whatever. It was cheap to play because of half price. So I'm going through my day. I've got about 72,000 tickets. I go outside to take a phone call. I come back in and most of the game swipers are red. They're marked out of service. I'm like, what the heck's going on? I go and see what's going on with the games. I'm like, are they taking a look at all of the games that I played? Because it's mainly the stuff that I was playing that was swiped out. Oh, they took a look at it all right. They took the 1,750 ticket pucks out of Tower of Tickets without me even having left the parking lot. They didn't wait for me to even be off the property. They changed that. As luck would have it, they brought all the games back up, including both Pop the Lock and Quick Drop. And I knocked out my other 28,000 tickets. And I got up to 100,000, and I combined my cards, and the manager, or well, I don't know whether this is the GM or the tech manager, Greg, actually started to talk to me.
Arcade manager.
Yeah, so I said, he asked me how much money I had into it, and because I figured I was never going to be back because I knew that they were going to change the payouts again, I told him I only had $170 into this, and he visibly winced because now he's complaining they weren't supposed to put the games with this. That's too much for 100,000. I'm sitting there thinking, you had the biggest advantage player in the Pittsburgh area hit you the hardest that he could, and if you take 2 families of 4 that came into your bowling alley and take the money that you profited from them, you're right back to square one, and you're mad, and I know for a fact you're going to change things right when I walk out this door, which you already started to do. But I took my switch and I sold off the games and I gave Joe his finder's fee. And I kept that switch, and I still have it. And that's my personal at U-Zone 28 piece for sweating the small money. As it was, I was told after the fact, and I saw this when they did a grand reopening special. They lowered the payout on Quick Drop from 500 to 250, but kept the settings the same. They lowered the payout on Pop the Lock from 500 to 300, and I'm pretty sure they messed with the difficulty. As it was, they put the 1,000 back in Tower of Tickets, which every arcade seems to take it out and put back in off and on. I don't know if they're really that worried about it when you've got somebody who's putting 35 plays into it and not winning a darn thing. But this is me putting Greg on blast, but this also isn't me saying that it's never worth going to that place again. What it's me saying is I really don't think you, as Zone 28, or any arcade for that matter, should worry so much about what one player is winning unless a game or multiple games are driven towards complete unprofitability. If a game normally pays out 25% and somebody has it paying 50%, you're still making money. You're not making as much, but you're still making money. If a game goes from paying 25% to 230%, like Tippin' Blocks was paying at Dave & Buster's back in the day, then yes, I totally understand a change there. But that's also part of the reason that I spread my play around from one game to another, so that I'm not taking any one game and having it pay well and above what it would normally pay out, so that the arcade can remain profitable, but so can I. I want to be fair. Be fair with me back.
And that's a really good point there, Mike. That's all we really want, honestly, because we understand that sometimes we're going to go in there, we're going to play games, and I'm going to hit 2 tickets, but I paid $1 to play the game. In that instance, the arcade is making, it's a 1% payback, we'll call it, because it's, they're barely even giving me anything, and I'm giving them a whole $1, that I could have made a 20-minute phone call on 10-10-3-2-1. I'm just kidding. If you guys remember that stuff from back in the day.
1-800-CALL-ATT.
1-800-CALL-ATT, right down the middle. I used to do that to get picked up after school, man. I would say, "It's Joe, pick me up." And my parents would come get me. They wouldn't even accept the call, just hang up afterward. But anyways, that's a little off topic. But yeah, I mean, and this goes out, and I kind of feel the same way about arcades. And actually, I was in Myrtle Beach about a week ago from recording this, and there was a couple arcades down there, and some were very fair, and some were just completely against the player. And I don't know if it's because they had somebody come in there like you and just dominate games, or something happened, or if it's just an owner who's like, I can make all the money in the world because people are going to keep pumping quarters into these no matter what I do. I didn't get to know some of the people down there. I did find out from one arcade, and I will shout them out because they are totally awesome people. The owner is this little old lady. She's like 90 years old, I think. I think that's what they told me. She's like upper 80s or something. She's owned this arcade for 50 some years. It was so much fun, and they're very fair. They are very fair on their payouts. We'll just say, and Mike's going to know what I'm talking about, they're on par with Dave and Buster's payback rates. So that's very fair to the player. Absolutely. It's very fair to the arcade because they understand that there's going to be some people like me. I went in, I was trying to win a Michael Kors purse for Michelle because they had purses as prizes.
Those aren't cheap.
I'm guessing down there that's a big thing because I've never seen them in any other arcade. But every arcade I went into down there either had Coach, Michael Kors, or, as of now, rest in peace, Kate Spade. But it was like, what's up with all the purses? Is that for travelers that come in or whatever? But it's beyond the point. I was racking up tower tickets down there. And I told them, hey, I'm going to be hitting this game. I said, because I'm trying to win this purse for my wife. And they knew, and they're like, that's fine. Okay. But they knew that it was also taking me 3 or 4 plays to hit as well. But there were 2 1,000s in tower tickets. And
that just sped you up.
If somebody wanted to play, I stepped out of the way once my tickets were done because everything's physical tickets down there. Everything was physical tickets. So I had piles of tickets sitting at my feet. But if somebody else wanted to play, I made sure that I got out of the way, let them play, and a lot of them were actually losing plays. Some people won like 150s, a couple 300s, but no one was able to hit the thousands like me. And a lot of plays were loses. So the arcade knows that those losses are going to offset my wins, especially at $1 a play. But this arcade, it was called the Boardwalk Arcade at the Gay Dolphin Gift Cove. Like, this is the name of the place down there. And it is totally awesome. Check them out, guys, if you're ever in Myrtle Beach. It's right by, I think it's 4th Avenue North off of North Kings Highway. And there's a motorcycle outside my apartment right now. It might have picked up in the microphone here. Maybe. If you guys hear it in the background, that's what's going on. But North Kings Highway, which is U.S. Route 17 down in Myrtle Beach, and like 4th Avenue North. Take it over to Ocean Boulevard, and it's seriously right there. It's a great arcade. They have a lot of E-claws, but their E-claws are set very fair. I hit payout on a couple of them very quickly, but some of them have very high-end prizes in them, like Coach purses, like wristlets or wallets, and some of them have like Beats headphones, which of course the payout's going to be a little higher, the payout rate, but they've hit them, and they have pictures of people winning them. So like I said, very fair arcade. Check them out. Definitely. This is definitely a shout out to them because they work with people like Mike and me, they understand that there's going to be somebody every now and then that's going to come in and just decimate tickets. But I'll tell you what, I went in there. It was so hard for me to film because without getting other people in there because it was so dang crowded. Every night that I went in there, I went in 3 nights I was down there, and it was so crowded. I'm like, this is awesome. But you would love it because they have 7 Yahtzee games together, and theirs goes up to 2,500 tickets for a Yahtzee. And they're not linked together. They're all individual too. But this is what Mike means about being fair. Like, it's a one-off location, like Zone 28, but they understand that, hey, there's going to be people every now and then that offset, the profit to loss and stuff like that. Just work with us. That's all we can say. And Mike looks like he's got something to say. He's getting very antsy over here.
Okay, Joe segued me perfectly into the next major topic I was going to talk about. And being fair with an arcade means more than actually just controlling yourself when it comes to not hitting the same game over and over. There's so many things that go into that. If a game's overpaying or something, if there's a glitch, not just hitting those tickets over and over, actually letting them know, hey, there's something wrong here. Usually, if you're upfront with an arcade about that they're going to let you keep what you want out of it, or they'll let you have at it for the rest of the night and they'll fix it the next day. Prizes. Not taking all of a prize.
Well, real quick, Mike, this is what I wanted to segue into. We kind of work together here on it. I mentioned it before, AP, Advantage Player. I actually have it written down. What does it mean about being a good Advantage Player? And, for someone like us that takes high-end prizes from the arcade, can flip a profit, it's still not hurting the arcade because we bring in business too, because people look at our tickets, especially when there's physical tickets, and be like, well, if that guy's hitting it, I can too. And most times they're going to fail unless they learn the game and get really good at it. So, but that's another thing that we do is especially with physical tickets, where we get piles at our feet and people are like, I want to do that too. I'm going to start playing a lot more. So being a good Advantage Player doesn't just mean you're working with the arcade and working with yourself to come out ahead. Both of you guys coming out absolutely ahead. There's a little bit more to that. So you were kind of getting into that, and I just wanted to explain this part. But,
yeah.
What does it mean to be a good APer? And you were kind of getting into that, like I said, with the telling the arcade operators, hey, there's something wrong with this game, or hey, it's overpaying tickets, or something like that. It's like, there's more to it than that too, plus redemption of prizes. So I'll let Mike explain what it means to be a good AP and what it's all about.
Okay, so there's the parts we already talked about, which are, making sure the arcade's hitting their profit numbers while you hit yours. There's, okay, we got 4 copies of this video game in, and I have enough tickets to get all 4, but I'm not going to do that because that means your regular guests who might be waiting on this game aren't going to get any. So I'm going to take 2 and I'm going to leave the other 2. Oh, the Nintendo Wii U's came in. They got 6. I have enough tickets built up to wipe out that whole shipment, but I'm not going to do that either. I'm going to take half, or I might even only take 2 and give somebody else about a week to come in and see if they want to grab them. And if there's any left, then that's fair game because I need to wipe them out so that the next order's going to have more on there. And they understand that and they work with me. There's also working with your fellow Advantage players. There was a period of time, and I'm going to go back to Slam-A-Winner Extreme because that was a very easy game to learn the timing on, to hit that button so the ball dropped through the tube and went right through the jackpot hole, or the hole that was worth 150 tickets. But there was more than just me that wanted to play that. There was one point where there were 17 different contacts in my phone that all played Slam-A-Winner to some varying degree. And if one person got on there and put on so many credits that they were just going to take all the time, then that's not right for everybody else. So we worked out a turn order. Everyone would put 30 balls on the machine. You had an idea on how many tickets or how long you had to go in the arcade and play other games and then come back when it was your time up. So everybody got what they were looking for, or at least close to it. There's that Zombie Snatcher game. There's a bonus puck that if you knock over could be worth, back in the day it was like 3,200 tickets. It's more closer to about $1,300 at this point, but you hit it a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if somebody's being a jerk, they'll wait for somebody else to do all the work to work that bonus puck out, and then they'll come in and try and hit it. If there's multiple people that all have an agreement, then okay, I'll get it this time, I'll leave it alone for you to get it the next time. Now, that the agreement doesn't need to be with everybody. If some random that you've never seen before works it out and you don't know that person, well, at that point it's fair play. You walked up to the machine, you hit the bonus if it's available. But when you've got multiple people that all know what they're doing, and you don't want to hurt one another. There's also, okay, you have multiple people that all know what they're doing. They're all grabbing the same prize. They're all selling the same prize the same way. If one person drops their price way below the others, that's going to permanently harm the market, because either everybody else is going to match it, or worse, people that aren't part of this arcade industry are going to lower their prices thinking that's the new price, so that when the first person's done selling theirs, and all the arcade people run out, everyone else still has it $20, $30 lower than what it was. By the time you restock, you're now having to compete at $20, $30 lower per thing you sell. So there was one point, and I love talking about this, because one of the things that I bring up was the golden age of certain things in arcade gaming. Mm-hmm. The tippin' blocks for 7 months was the golden age of tippin'.
Yes.
The being able to cash for a prize that was $4 per 1,000 tickets was what I refer to as the gold standard. Mm-hmm. Now I can talk about this openly because the item's not even sold anymore, but the Nintendo Wii U was that item for all of us, and it was 75,000 tickets, and it sold for $300. The perfect rate, exactly fair. So the whole community was selling these on eBay at the same time, and didn't even have to communicate about it. It just kind of happened that we all agreed on one price, and none of us, and somebody would sell cheaper than us sometimes, and that's okay. I'll give you a perfect example. Target had a glut of these, and they listed at $275, which was cheaper than the rest of us, and we just held our price. Target's sale ran and done, and then all of ours sold again. Newegg.com comes on eBay with a listing and just blows that out of the water. They're selling brand new for $260. We hold our price. Their sale ends. We become the lowest people again. We're not hurting one another to gain a quick sale. There was 1 or 2 times where somebody said, hey, look, I need to sell $5 cheaper on this because I need the money in a very short term. This isn't going to be a permanent thing. That was just in our inner circle, and we're like, okay, we understand. And that person moved through their stock, and everything went back to normal. So as far as being fair, that's part of it too. Everybody's able to cash out for the prizes they want. If you're dabbling in the same thing, you're not going cutthroat with one another. Everybody's able to play the games they want. Everybody's making sure the arcade still makes enough money for it to be worth it, so that the arcade's making money and everybody else that's doing this is still making money. That's what it means to be an all-around fair advantage player.
And that's a very good explanation of it, Mike, and I thank you for bringing that all up, because, I mean, we can openly talk about it now, too. The Wii U sometimes even went as high as $400 to sell, which was even over retail at, Toys R Us.
That's when they were closed out.
Yeah, and it was
It was the last month.
It was oh my God, I'm making way more on this than retailers and anything. And, I mean, they came into high demand, but we still stuck to the good AP standard of, hey, I have enough tickets, I can buy all 7 that come in or 6 that come into Dave & Buster's as the last shipment. But we would be like, okay, you can take 2, I'll take 2, or whatever, 1 or 2, however it is. Or, hey, if there's any left over next week, I'm going to have enough tickets. Let me grab one, please. Yep. But we definitely supported each other, and that was a huge thing. And, hang on, Mike has something else to say about this. Hold on.
And then there was that time I went to Ohio and toured 4 stores.
Yes, the Ohio tour, and he racked up. Oh my God, what did you? How many systems did you rack up from that?
Yeah, a friend who I met through Reddit, just like I met Joe. Her name's Christy, and we're pretty much BFFs at this point. Well, I'll tell you that I should put that story on here because I want her to have a blast hearing this.
Well, go ahead, because it's actually a very positive story, and you guys are going to enjoy this one. I know it's getting a little long, guys. It's almost an hour and a half. Most of the podcasts I try to keep under an hour, but like the one with Matt that went 2 hours, it was just all interesting stuff. I can't not cut him off here. I can't just cut him off because he's full of information, and I'm definitely going to have him on another future episode because there's a lot more stuff to talk about too. Not just what we're touching today, but there's a lot more stuff. But I'm going to let him get into this story, and you guys are really going to like this story. Trust me on this. It's interesting. It's a lot of fun, but Mike, keep it clean, please.
Of course. So I, as you all know, I run the subreddit, and I run the community for this, and somebody comes in once and says, what are the conditions like at Dave & Buster's Pittsburgh? I'm like, somebody's coming into my home turf. This is going to be interesting. And this was a brand new user to Reddit who said, hi, I know I'm new. I have an obligation. I am going to host a friend's kid's birthday party, and he's this old and he's interested in these things, and I'm wondering what the games are going to be like. Now, Christy had went on Google and started looking up how to win arcade tickets because she was used to taking this kid to Chuck E. Cheese. There, you could just buy the tickets for the difference between what you had earned and what you actually wanted. Okay, you're 1,500 tickets short, give us $15. Well, Dave & Buster's obviously doesn't do that, so she doesn't want to be putting in dollar a swipe to have this kid get 4 tickets trying to get some little plush or something. So she started looking up strategies, and she stumbled onto my forum on Reddit. And she said at the end of this post, MewTwoStruckBack, if you happen to be around, you're invited to the party. Food and drinks are on me. Are you telling me I have an open bar tab on high-end alcohol to win some kid some tickets? I cleared my plans for that day.
Well, and food too. You're
Yes.
gonna Dave & Buster's. Some people complain about the food, but honestly, I don't think I've had a few issues here and there. It happens. I talked to the manager. They usually clear it up. They either comp the meal or they make a new one and they comp the meal or something like that. I mean, there's ways to go about it with being civil and still being, and trust me, it's like any other restaurant. There's good times, there's bad times. If you go on Yelp and read reviews, you're going to see bad reviews. You're going to see good reviews. It's just, you have to have your own experience, and hopefully you have a good experience for the day. But yeah, the food there is actually pretty good. I actually almost always get, and this is one of the things you guys can redeem for if you go to Dave & Buster's, called Tastes for Tickets. Basically, you win tickets, and then you can redeem for appetizers or desserts. And I almost always get the chicken quesadilla, which is awesome. Yes. I don't like sour cream, so I always get double salsa. And either the pepperoni pretzel pull apart,
Yes.
or I get the mountain of nachos with it. Either or.
My mom loves those.
So, but and then I always finish up. I usually bring home bananas Foster pie for Michelle, and I get the triple layer chocolate cake because, oh my God, is it amazing!
Yes, it is.
It's very decadent. It's very rich in chocolate.
Very fattening.
Especially being triple layer chocolate, and that means chocolate cake, chocolate syrup, and chocolate icing, along with chocolate chips on top of it. So they should actually call it the quad layer, but triple layer just rolls off the tongue a little bit easier. Yep. But I'll let Mike get back into the story here. I just want to interject about the food and everything because it's actually really good. If you guys are ever there and you can do the taste for tickets, it's 1,000 tickets for some of the appetizers and $750 for the others, and I think it's 1,000 for the desserts too, right?
$750.
$750? Okay. I got my numbers messed up.
So I kind of wish they would have the Brookie Sunday Tower on the Taste for Tickets, but I've been told if they did that, half the wait staff would immediately quit. They're not even kidding. That thing is a pain to make. But I was able to get this from Christy because she was covering the tab. So I go in, and there's supposed to be like 10 people for this kid's birthday party, and they paid for 10, which is the minimum. Only 5 showed up. This kid's family stiffed him. Oh. So I was basically the managers heard about this and they slipped me a power card and said, "Win the kid something nice, would you?" I said, "You got it." So between the money she loaded on her card and me showing her around, and the manager's card that they gave me, these comp chips to help the kid out, between the two of them, the kid got to pick whatever he wanted because there was 25,000 tickets, and I was about 4 margaritas in, and all the buffet food that they had, plus this brookie Sunday tower, and we were best friends before we left that building. Well, I bring that story up to tell you this. Christy and I had our plan for one of my long vacation weeks where we did the Tour de Ohio, where back when I had so many tickets that there was no way I was going to cash them all, and the Wii U was still a thing, we figured we'd go to 4 different Dave & Buster's in Ohio over 2 days, and I would win what tickets I could, but more importantly, cash out at stores that had these extra consoles because they didn't have many people like me that were winning them all. And I didn't take all of them at any of these stores. One of them was actually nice enough to tell me I could take more than 2. And I got so far down in tickets that Christy loaned me about 10,000 that I then repaid her back when we got to Pittsburgh. So I got, I think, 7 Wii U's between all the stores that I went to and put all these up, and they went like in 2 days. That post office run was nuts.
Oh yeah, and I mean that last run of the Wii U's. They just
the 400 run.
But they still sold like just hotcakes,
Yeah,
and I've never I never sold before online much, here and there, things here and there. But I actually had to open an Amazon seller store just to push these through because they would move so fast. And, I mean, I was racking up enough tickets. So before I met Mike, guys, I never had the wherewithal of winning tens of thousands of tickets. If I walked out of there with 5,000 tickets and I spent $50, I felt like that was an accomplishment to me. I mean, I thought I was a pretty good arcade player. And I was like, oh, man, one of these days I'm going to get that jukebox, the CD jukebox thing. You remember that, Mike?
Yes, I do.
What was it, 110,000 tickets or something, or 105,000 tickets? I'm like, one of these days I'm going to walk out with that thing.
Good word. I don't know how many it was, but
it was up there.
To give you an idea, Joe said he did about 5,000 tickets a session at most, and my sessions were all over the place, how many tickets I'd win in any given day, until Half Price Wednesday rolled around and we hit another thing that I call the gold standard. Now, the gold standard of selling was the Wii U. The gold standard of winning tickets was the golden age of tipping. But the gold standard for what you should expect on any given day at the time was 100,000 tickets in a session. So I was on Wednesday going in there and knocking out 100,000 tickets a day, every Wednesday. And that became the standard. And from there, Joe's number shot way up from that 5,000. He may have not have done 100,000 a day, but it was a lot more than 5.
Yeah, after I met Mike, and he's like, hey, you're really good at these games. Maybe a little hone your skills just a little bit, and you can do my numbers. And I'm like, are you kidding? And he's like, no, not at all. And he's like, dude, you need to start using coupons and this and that, because I would just wholesale buy the $100 loads. And Mike's over here slapping his head. I didn't know any better. I wasn't that privy to the information of getting the best bang for my buck, plus getting the best ticket return for the chips spent. Like I said, after I met Mike, all that changed. And seriously, that was around the time I met Matt. And I started doing YouTube videos, and it was like, Matt's like, hey, you got to show off your jackpot skills on YouTube. And Mike's like, hey, you're honing your jackpot skills and hitting all these tickets. And I would walk out of there 50, 60, 70,000 tickets in a Wednesday, going after my office job at 5 p.m, going to Dave & Buster's, hitting these tickets and walking out at 11, 12 at night when they closed. And just like, now it's like, okay, it's 50,000 tickets. But back then it was like, oh my God, it's 50,000 tickets. Like, it was a lot to me, like when I first started doing it. And I'm sure anyone feels that way whenever they start actually being able to hit jackpots, and like, oh my God, I used to hit 100 tickets and thought it was a lot. Now it's like, I hit 10,000 tickets and it's like, It's 10,000 tickets. And I mean, this is where I'm going to be honest here. This is where it kind of turns into, it feels like a job to me. And one of the things that I want to touch on is I take my niece sometimes. She's 7 years old, and she goes crazy over hitting 70 tickets or 80 tickets like at Angry Birds or something. And seeing that joy again in her face kind of takes me back to the days when I wasn't so good at it, but it still felt like a lot of tickets when I would hit 100 or 200, things like that. And it was like, oh man, I didn't realize that, games could be timed and you can hit jackpots and things like, I mean, it's a lot harder now because a lot of the games have randomizers on them and things like that. A lot more computer controlled than actual physical stuff now. But there's still those games out there where you can still do some of that stuff. You just got to find them and learn them. But yeah, I mean, there's times it feels like a job. Like last Wednesday, I was at Dave & Buster's in Myrtle Beach. I found a couple of the games that are not global, we'll say, and I ended up racking up almost right around 175,000 tickets in 4 hours. Okay, Mike is crapping a brick right now because those are old school AP numbers, as in like, holy crap, the golden age of tipping is back, even though it's not tipping blocks, because
old school Slam Extreme numbers. Not so much the holy crap isn't the 175,000. The holy crap is 4 hours. The thing is, I mean, back during the golden age of tipping blocks, you knocked out 100,000 tickets dirt cheap. They didn't have e-tickets then, so you played for 2.5 hours and you waited for 5 more for those tickets to come out. The closest you got to speed was Slam Extreme because it had the triple ticket feeders on it, so you didn't have to keep calling them over. The best run I ever had was 100,000 tickets in about an hour and a half. It doesn't get that good anymore.
And what was it, about 2 years ago they rolled out in bed? 2016, I think, August of 2016, roughly, at least in Pittsburgh. Because, well, there was a VP of Dave & Buster's who came onto Reddit, and he did an AMA. You guys can look it up. His name's Kevin Bacchus. He was actually instrumental in the development of the Xbox at Microsoft. But he's now with Dave & Buster's. I think he's still there.
Yes.
But he's a vice president there. I forget of what his title is, but he did an AMA, and then he started telling us things like, hey guys, we're going to be rolling out embed e-tickets. We're going to get rid of the old orange swipers with the little green, like, Game Boy screens, I called them. They were backlit Game Boy screens, I called them, because if you guys remember the original Game Boy, Nintendo Game Boy, the old green screen, it was like that, except it was backlit. But he would give us a little bit of like heads up, and this is back when the subreddit was more not as out there and not as popular, where just a casual guest came on as well and posted like it is now. And that's kind of why we have the other one, but we'll just keep it at that. But the subreddit was completely different back then than it is now, 3 years later, than when I got onto it, because I've only been on Reddit for 3 years. It's coming up on 3 years. And the only reason I signed up, to be honest, is to talk to Mike. So otherwise, I'd never even have done it. I would never even known what Reddit was. I was a Fark.com kind of guy, F-A-R-K. Fark.com is like the news. People submit news and with funny titles, and I was all about that. But yeah, I mean, you definitely touched on the things about like the, waiting for tickets and things like that. And at that point, when it was hard tickets, like hard physical tickets, at that point, technically you're hogging a game because you have to wait for all the tickets to come out and no one else can play it, which goes back into the good AP thing. It's just, the embed made it so much easier, and it also counts so much faster. That's why I was able to do 175,000 tickets in 4 hours, because I could count 1,000 tickets in 10 seconds, or 20 seconds or whatever it was. It compared to 4 minutes it was waiting for 1,000 tickets, something like that.
You're absolutely right.
So, I mean, I kind of knew roughly, because I've hit a few of those spin and wins back in the day, whenever it was around, back when it was over by where Daytona is now, if you remember that. But, so one of the things I just want to ask too, though, like, okay, so we're going back on the advanced player things. What about those people that we deem the black hat APers, the people that we want to just kicking the junk because their actions, the things they do. I don't know if I consider showboating as part of that.
Well,
Like piles of tickets and stuff. If you're showboating for the casual guest, okay. Oh, I can hit jackpots. I have piles of tickets sitting here. I switched my card from e-tickets to paper tickets just to have a little fun, nostalgia, whatever. But like, what about those people that do take every one of those high-end prizes, or someone that just will not get off a game, or someone who basically destroys the games, like the people who did the pop the lock in the test locations and completely ruined it for the rest of us, where it could have been controlled. It could have been a 500 ticket jackpot for at least a little while. Yeah. It was eventually going to get nerfed once it got rolled out because of how many people were going to hit it. But we could have had a little bit of extra goodness. I don't know how else to say it.
I know what you mean.
We could have had a little bit of extra goodness if the people in the test locations would have controlled themselves a little bit more, kept their tickets low. Like, yeah, I know I can jackpot this, but you know what? Control yourself. Spread your play elsewhere and only hit this for X number of tickets per week. Per week. Not even per day. Per week. Because you want to control the payout rate. And I mean, and this is kind of information that we're sharing a little bit that we kind of like to try to keep in under wraps, but it's a lot of public information too. And I mean, I don't know if any Dave & Buster's people listen to this or whatever, but we're not trying to game the system or anything. We're just trying to make it a little bit better for us for at least a little while. And I mean, this is all back to making it fair for the players and working with the arcades, back to fairness again. Okay. But what's your take on these people that, like I said, we deem the black hat APers, who either are going to take a glitch in a game and not tell anyone about it and just run hundreds of thousands of tickets out of a game or something like that, and just whatever,
Okay, there's so much to touch on here. There's what I call black hat and gray hat. I'll start with the black hat first. That's the people that go and turn a game off and back on to make it easier, or the people that won't get off a game, or the people that wipe out an entire shipment of a prize and don't let anyone get one. That's not really so much a problem around me. I've hardly ever seen that be a problem, but in some places, this is a very real thing. People on our community, and specifically people in my inner circle, have told me there are stores where there are people that have ins with employees at certain arcades, whether it be Buster's or not, that prizes show up. They don't even get put out on the floor. You have, somebody with an in that's basically being allowed to buy it before anyone else even has a shot. You have people that will lurk around Zombie Snatcher and snipe up the jackpot even when other people that know what they're doing are there, and there should be a sharing thing going on between people that all have the same skill and are doing the same thing. You have people that would straight up cheat. You had people that would crawl into a game. You had people that would have people stealing tickets for them. This was something from way back in the day. But in cases like that, the good advantage players that I call the white hat ones that do everything by the book, they will usually try and band against the black hat people and keep them out of the loop on anything that they can, prize shipments, new games that are worth hitting, things that are worth selling. But sometimes that's not always possible, and it does remain a very real problem. And this is kind of why a lot of this information, some of the just this is what to hit, this is how to do it, is no longer public. It has to be, we basically need to see that somebody isn't going to go ham on a game and just completely obliterate it and get it changed for the worse. Before we disseminate that information. To put it in perspective, there's about 4,000 people on our public community, and the inner circle is absolutely no more than 50. So less than 1 out of every 100 people are people that we think that we can trust with that kind of stuff. And it's hand-picking and vetting and going through somebody's history and even looking them up off of Reddit to see what they're all about. I do want to touch on something I call gray hat, which is not necessarily something that would make you somebody we'd want to ban or that Dave and Buster's would hate, but is okay. I'll use the example of we'll go back to tipping blocks because that enters into this too. Back in 2012, the software was updated pretty much company-wide to make it function the way they wanted it to function in the first place. A friend of mine was on vacation somewhere in Florida. I'm not going to say which store. He's laughing because he already knows this story.
Well, yeah, I mean, we do need to keep some information discreet, although even saying the state could still be an issue. Although probably not really, because there's a good number
It's been fixed.
Has it? Okay.
Yeah,
okay, well then we can talk about it then. Okay.
I'm still not going to name the stores to not put them on blast, and this has since run its course. So somebody in my inner circle was on vacation, and there happened to be a Dave & Buster's. And he played tipping blocks, and it paid the 1,000 jackpot, because they changed it to 1,000 when they put it to where it had a payout instead of letting you hit every time. And something possessed him to play it again. And it gave the telltale sign of a game that is ready to pay out. The only way that would ever happen 2 games in a row is if that game's on the old software. What probably happened, as I've seen happen in Pittsburgh, is eventually the software gets corrupted and the computer crashes and they need to reinstall it. This other location probably used the old install disk. He asked me for advice on what to do. I said, run the numbers. How much is it going to cost you to play? How much is it going to pay out? This game's now paying out 1,000 instead of 500 because it's on the new settings for that. You no longer have to wait around for the tickets because it's on embed rather than physical. How much are you going to make a day? He ran the numbers by me. I said, you need to hit this. This is a time where I understand going hard on a game, because as soon as that's found out, it's going to get changed. So you're not really trying to protect a game from getting changed. You know a game's not supposed to be that way, but it's still functioning normally. It's not like, oh, the game's spitting out 50 tickets for every one that it should. It's not a hardware fault where they can say, that's a malfunction, we're taking the tickets back. That's not a malfunction. That's them not having the right software on it. Mm-hmm. So as it stood, he went through the rest of his entire vacation at this Dave & Buster's from open to close. He talked to his family, ran the numbers. They went back for another week, hit it again, went home, hit still summer vacation. He goes back. The second day he's there this time, in the middle of him playing, the swiper goes red. They disabled it remotely. He still got the tickets from everything up to that point, but then they put the proper software on there and life moved on.
Yeah, he got found out, and I mean, it was only a matter of time. He just didn't know when. It's just kind of funny that it happened to him while he was playing it, and that they did it remotely. It's kind of funny that that they're able to. I mean, obviously they're able to do that. That's no problem, but it's funny that it happened in the middle of the day of him playing. Usually that'll happen at night or the next day at open when they're going through all their checks of the games.
Well, I'm not going to disclose the guy's numbers. What I will say is he never had a problem cashing out tickets. Dave & Buster's took it on the chin. Fair play to them. He was able to get what he wanted from them. And he pretty much made enough to get himself set for at least the expenses portion of his college education. So he's doing something good with the money. It was not a small sum. But that's what I consider gray hat, in that the game isn't set the way it would normally be set across the company, but the game isn't actually functioning incorrectly in any other capacity. In that case, I understand hitting something hard because it's only going to be that way for a short time. Though there is something to be said for, in your home store, letting them know something like this as a PR move, because if they're going to, if you become known as the guy who lets them know when something's off kilter, you're also going to be the guy that they never ever question when you tell them, hey, this game broke, I lost this many tickets. Hey, this game's not working and I would normally be able to get 5,000 tickets out of it. Can you help me out on something else? That pays dividends over the years. I've heard stories of people being allowed to keep multiple $100 misloads to their card because they were honest and they've been known as a good white hat advantage player.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing too. Just and that's a good way to live life too. Honestly, is to be honest. Just something happens, tell someone, or do something about it. Just be honest about it. If something happens, you get caught doing something. Yeah, fess up to it, because I mean you probably see it on like cops and stuff all the time. If someone admits that they were drinking and they were pulled over for driving, most times the charges that the cops file against them are a lot less than if they lie to them and they find out later on that their blood alcohol content is way over the legal limit or something. And it's like, you know what, they'll hit you with a misdemeanor. I mean, you're still going to get a charge. Obviously it's going to happen, period, but it's going to be a less of a charge, and it's not going to be as hard on your permanent record, we'll call it. Yeah, we'll call it on your permanent record, like Lamar Bone from Doug used to do all the time. Vice Principal Bone. It's going on your permanent record, Mr. Funny. Mike forgets that I could do all the voices and everything, but yeah. So I mean, just it's a good way to live life too. Is be a positive person, be honest about things, and like he said, if it's in somewhere that you frequent all the time and you notice that something's wrong, say something, because chances are then if you're straight up honest about something and something else happens, they're going to be like, well, this dude is straight up tells us everything. Why should we not believe him? And I mean, don't use it to your advantage by any means. Don't go to a game and be like, well, hey, this game, ripped me off of 10,000 tickets or something. Yeah, if it did, yes, tell them. If it didn't, and don't try to use that to your advantage. That's what I'm trying to say. So, but we're going to get to it's a really good story, awesome and everything. So that pretty much does it for the stuff I have written down. We're going to get to the QA portion in just a minute. So we'll be right back right after this. The All About the Arcades podcast is brought to you by me, JJ General 1. Check me out on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter at JJ General 1. I also have merchandise available at Spreadshirt. Go to shop.spreadshirt.com/JJ General 1 or search for JJ General 1 on Spreadshirt.com. If you want to advertise on this podcast, you can contact me at jminkel04@comcast.net. Again, that's jminkel, MINKEL, 04@comcast.net with the subject advertising on the podcast. Now back to our show. All right, guys, we are back to All About the Arcades podcast. Mike and I are having a good laugh here doing while we were on break, and it's hilarious. But like I promised before the break, we are going to get into the Q&A, and I did get a couple questions this time. Last time I recorded this, I put it out that day, and I didn't get anything because I think I was just a little late doing it. This time I put it out a couple days ago that I was going to be re-recording with him. If anyone had any questions or anything, send them in. And I did get a couple. So one of them comes from a individual on Instagram known as DJ's Vending and Amusements. And he's been a long-time follower of mine. He's a really good dude. But he asks, have you ever been recognized from YouTube/Reddit? And how do you feel or respond to being asked for pictures and autographs? Does it make you feel nervous? Does it make you feel like weird? I don't know how else to say it, but getting recognized from YouTube and stuff like that. And I think you have a couple of stories on this one. I know one definitely very recently that happened, and I know you're going to tell this one, but what's your take on being recognized from YouTube and things like that?
I didn't know you were going to ask this, but yeah, we both know what I'm going to talk about here. I do get recognized from YouTube all the time, more recently, lately, in the last couple of years. hey, are you that guy from YouTube? Or more recently, are you MewTwoStruckBack? I'm like, wow, yes, I am. So
just real quick on that, it's amazing that people remember like the numbers and stuff, because even Matt, like Matt3756, he's amazed when people actually remember the entire username, because it's just random numbers that he picked whenever he signed up. And people remember that stuff, man. So yeah, just mentioning you by username is something incredible.
Well, the story I'm going to get into is there was a school, a middle school that was having their field trip day down to Dave and Buster's, and I have two kids that walk by me. Are you MewTwoStruckBack? Yes, I am. And they go, oh my God. And then they went and get their friends, and I'm killing tailgate at this point. I'm just racking it up 5,000 by 5,000, and they're just watching me do this. And they get their friends, and those friends get their friends, and soon I have a crowd of about 40 to 50 people following me for a solid hour to every game I play. They saw me rack up tailgate. They saw me doing gridiron. They saw me throwing the footballs on 2-minute drill. I managed to throw a 500 point game or 500 ticket game plus the bonus on Crossy Road, which was darn near impossible for me to get that high on any kind of regular basis. And I just had this audience, and I was eating that up. I love the attention. I really do. That's probably why I gave out probably a bit too much information in the early days with the guide and the two Ask Me Anything threads. And I know there's some people that probably wish I wasn't here anymore. Here's the thing. Having some attention on you can work to your benefit more than playing the games yourself sometimes. I'll give you a perfect example. It's Friday night. You got the frat guys that are throwing 2-minute drill. They're playing that, and they're doing absolutely horribly. None of them can get it over 250 points. You go up, you're like, hey, what's a high score between you guys? 250? Yeah, watch this. Hold my beer. And then... Well, not saying hold my beer because they haven't bought my beer for me yet. That's where I'm going with this. So you go over and you knock out the jackpot with a minute left on the clock, let the time tick down, explain why it is that you're letting the time tick down, as we talked about like in the first 5 minutes of the podcast. And then I said, hey, I'll pitch you guys a deal. I know it's probably a little harder for you guys to get tickets. Tell you what, you throw me your cards, I'll knock you out 2,000 tickets. You cover me for a drink. And repeat that with a couple of people. You get your food paid for, you get your drink paid for, and the value of what you're getting is higher than the net for what you would have got playing the games and getting the tickets and selling whatever for yourself. I cannot remember the last time that I have ever paid full price for an alcoholic beverage in Dave & Buster's. And all the times where I should have, Christie's covered that tab.
And one of the things you do is you have a collection of certain glasses from Dave & Buster's. What's your favorite drink? And how many of these glasses do you have?
Okay. They had a signature glass for what they call the $1 Million Margarita. And I thought this was like the TNT where it's special glass, you keep the glass. I wasn't told until after the fact that I wasn't supposed to be keeping those. One of the managers says, "Oh, you had can you bring those back?" I'm like, "Wait, aren't those like the TNT?" He's like, "No." I'm like, I didn't mean to. He's like, I guess it's all right now because they moved away from the signature glasses, so you can keep the ones you have, but you weren't supposed to keep those. At one point, I had about 16 of them, and I didn't really need 16 specialty glasses, but I still have about 3 or 4 that I keep, and they're because the way I make that drink a little stronger than them, but the glass is big enough to hold the whole thing.
And that's pretty impressive, and it's kind of funny too. That's why I'm laughing over here. Even though I've heard that story 100 times before, it's still hilarious to me that he didn't know he was not supposed to keep the glass, but yet took it home. And kids, remember, if you're going to have any drinks, wait till you're 21 and drink responsibly. Things like that. I got to cover all this. So
Unless you're in Texas and have parental supervision, because that's legal there.
What age?
Any age, as long as the parent has line of sight to the kid.
Oh my God, that's a weird law in Texas. Hey, I learned something new today. There you go. All right, DJ's Vending and Amusements, thank you for sending in that question. It was a really good one. Very, very detailed answer by Mike, obviously. And that's not the only time he's been recognized, but that's probably the most recent and probably most famous time probably that he's been recognized, especially by a bunch of school kids watching him jackpot games. And they gave you rounds of applause after every jackpot, too, if I'm not mistaken.
The big one was after the Crossy Road 500 game. That's the one thing I think I did that was worth the applause.
And even I'm impressed at that, because I think I can maybe throw a 200 on Crossy at Dave & Buster's if I'm lucky.
I've seen you get around the 220 to 250 range, because hard mode kicks in at 210.
Well, at least I'm making it to hard mode. Usually. Although there's been times lately where you get trapped, and it's like, God, I hate that. But anyways, next question comes from Katie, and this is via the Facebook fan page. And she wants to know the best ticket games for beginners. And I know this is kind of information you don't really divulge, but basically they want to know, like, what's a decent chance for a good payout without spending tons of time practicing?
Okay. I can actually answer that a couple of ways here. Hoopla, the new version, not the one where you had the crane that went around the rings, but the thing that's actually like ring toss. They're testing that at...
Big rubber rings.
Yeah, the big rubber rings. They're testing that at Pittsburgh, and if they keep it the way it is, from my understanding, even if you don't get a single ring, you get 40 tickets, and it's only a 6.8 chip game or 3.4 on Wednesday. So at 40 tickets for even the absolute worst loss, you don't have to worry about putting too much money in it and getting nothing, because the mercy tickets or the minimum tickets for that game are very generous. I would say if you can swing it, spin and win, actually, if it's a little more expensive, so you'd want to do that on Wednesday. But there are spaces on that wheel that are 80 tickets if you're not going for the jackpot, so kids can knock that out. Big bass wheel, there's not really that much of a skill element to it, but there's a couple of big wide spaces that are 150 tickets, which I've seen little kids play that game and hit the 150 and just start screaming like they won the world. So that's a fairly good game for tickets in short order, even by the inexperienced. That's probably the best I can think of.
I think one of the others, too, is Wheel Deal Extreme. 16 tickets if you get close to the jackpot. I mean, those sensors are really, really sensitive for hitting that jackpot. I mean, there's been times where I've had the puck, I know I've had it centered on the red, and it's just like, oh, so close, or something like it.
I've had it the other way, too. I've had it where I've been off like that much, and it still gave it to me. It was just off-center.
Yeah, I mean, and that happens, too. But that one gives a lot of good tickets, too. Plus, if you get a dead center on, like, the 10... It's times 5. So, and, like, I think it goes, 16, 10, 8... Yeah. 6, 4, 2 or something like, and like as you go down, there's more spaces that are per the ticket value. So, and if you could dead center it, I mean, even if it's a 6 or an 8, I mean, you're looking at 40 tickets or a 30 ticket payout for one puck. Plus, you get 5 shots per swipe.
Treasure Quest.
Which one's that one?
The pirate wheel.
Oh, the one where you spin and it's so close, matey, you'll never find me treasure, right? That one?
Yeah, that's the one. I sat down and did the math on average, and like if you go there on a Wednesday and you play that game exclusively on half price, I think you can actually average getting more than half your money back, and for little kids, that's an amazing return on a game that they're not really putting any major skill into.
Yeah, you just spin the wheel. But I mean, well, that's assuming you don't land on the 2 spaces, or was it 2 or 3 spaces next to the higher amounts? 2 on each side that are 4 10. Tickets? Oh, they're 10? I thought they were 4. Okay.
There's 50 spaces on the wheel. There's 16 10s, so 1 out of every 3 spins roughly is going to be 10 on average, but everything else is like 50, 90, 100, and then there's the bonus
30,
spaces.
15, 10.
Yeah.
And you get the bigger ones, what, 250?
Two 200s, one 500, 1,000.
And there you go, guys. There's his math, the autism coming back into play, where he just did that. He knows how many spots are on that wheel, guys, and he knows how many, one in whatever is going to be roughly. It's not always going to be one in whatever, but would you say 1 in 4 or something?
1 in 3.
One in 3 is
very, very close to 1 in 3.
Yeah, 1 in 3 is going to land on the 10s, but for the most part, you're going to get pretty decent tickets out of that game. So, Katie, thank you so much for sending in that question. It was a very good one. Mike, again, another awesome detailed answer. Everything with you is just completely detailed and crazy, and I think people are going to get a lot of information out of this. I do have one more that comes from, excuse me, as I burp here into the microphone. Keep that into the podcast.
You better.
Mike goes, you better. It comes from Ed, and it's via the Facebook fan page. It says, besides Speed Demon or Cyclone, what is, in your opinion, the easiest light-stopping game? And I use light-stopping in quotes because there are so many games like that where it's like a light moves on a board and you have to hit the button to stop it in a certain way. Spin and Win comes to mind. Cyclone, as he said, but he's like, besides Speed Demon and Cyclone, what is, in your opinion, the easiest light-stopping game? And I think I have an idea what you're going to say here.
What, are you getting at Spin and Win here?
No. I'm not getting at Spin and Win, but I think one of the easiest ones that I've found is if your location has it, your arcade has it, the very old Wheel of Fortune with the actual wheel with the little clickers on it. It's very generous for giving the spin. It's kind of open. I mean, it's got a large win window compared to other stop-the-light games.
It does, but that does have a payout on it at some stores. So
True.
If you have one that's like in one of the older arcades where they're not so worried about it paying out the tickets because most of the values are small, you can hit that button in the center or that light in the center and the wheel will spin, because the odds on you getting one of the jackpot spaces is only 10%. So they're not really worried about if you hit it all the time. But let's see, as far as light stopping, other than that, old school Spin and Win right out of the box was actually fairly fair. Cyclone, not so much. That has a payout, like you said, besides Speed Demon and Cyclone. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think. Match 'em up before they put an auto lose. That's my number one. That I just remembered that now.
If you guys don't know which one he's talking about, Match 'em Up is the one that has fruits on the wheel, and there's 4 spots with sevens.
At 12, 3, 6, and 9.
12, 3, 6, and 9. If you're imagining a clock, the 7's at the top, at the absolute 90 degrees to the right, 90 degrees from that to the bottom, 90 degrees from that to the left, and 90 degrees back to the top. But they, like he said, it does have an auto lose on it, so you may think you hit it, and it will actually skip over to the, was it cherry after or something?
Well, it has an auto lose now, but it didn't for about 10 years. And right when I started playing, my routine was that I would go play Stop the Clock at 1000 until I won it. And there were 4 match-em-ups right next to one another. I'd go to the first, 777. Go to the next, 777. Third, fourth, 777. So I'd have Stop the Clock still paying out the tickets from its 500. And then all 4 of the other games are paying 250 ticket jackpots at the same time. And that was a true light stop game. And they lowered that to 100. Then they lowered it to 50. Then they put it back to 100. Then they started it at, I don't remember if they went back to 250 or not, but that's a few years after that is when they put the auto lose on it. But for back in the day, that was one of the games, even at places that weren't Dave and Buster's, that I learned how to effectively manage a light stop game that wasn't rigged.
And that's pretty interesting. So, again, Ed, thank you. Awesome question. You guys sent in some awesome questions. That's all I have for the Q&A this time. Mike, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add right now at this point before we end the podcast.
Let's see. Christy, if you're listening to this, LASIK, I know you'll know what that means. Turn items on when you're playing Smash Brothers. I always got to throw that in there. I hope there's some competitive people listening to this that are gritting their teeth at me right about now. Heck, if you actually read deep into the subreddit, some of the sticky threads in my community, I make mention of that just to drive some people nuts. And I think that's pretty much all I've got.
Is that all you got? Because remember, Mike, back in 1998, Undertaker threw Mankind through a table. Okay, guys, that's one of the things that's between us. Mike likes to throw that in on random posts on Reddit, where he gives a really good explanation and he leads right into it. And I thought that was perfect for me to drop that in there just because it's Mike and I had to do it.
I took that from another guy who I can't really say his username because it has a swear in it, but I'm sure if you look up 1998 Undertaker Hell in a Cell, it'll show up online. There's been news sites that have done stories about it. This guy just writes the most intricate things that really make you believe he was there, he experienced whatever the topic of discussion is, and then in the middle of it, it just goes, so, the total we had to pay was $19.98 when the Undertaker threw Mankind off Hell in a Cell and plummeted 16 feet through an announcer's table. And so I started doing it on my post because, well, the difference between my post and that guy's is when I make a post like that, I actually did go through the story that I'm telling. His are all bamboozles.
Yeah, and that's great. And I know you've been doing that recently, and I was hoping that you weren't going to say it because then I could throw it in there, and I got you with it. And that is one of the best things I've ever done right now to Mike. And he's sitting here laughing so hard. You guys have no idea. He's actually slapping his knee. Laughing, like literally he is slapping his knee, and he's mad at himself because he didn't think of it first. That's pretty much the big thing, is he's mad at himself. But no, Mike, thank you so much for being on the show. You know, it's been really interesting listening to everything. Guys out there in podcast land, those of you listening to this, you guys know I have pretty interesting guests on here. Hoping that my next guest will be Phil Marzullo from Gamer Green. He's actually the founder and CEO of Gamer Green. And hopefully he'll be on here very soon once I get all my Skype technical issues taken care of, because Phil can't quite come to the apartment to record the podcast. He kind of lives across the country. So I do have to record his with Skype. I think I have the settings all figured out, so that should work for me next time. But right now, I want to thank Mike again for all his sharing all his knowledge and everything, being able to interview him, ask him some questions here. If you guys want to check him out online, YouTube or anywhere, it's MewTwoStruckBack. It's all one word. And again, play with all items on and smash. And I agree with that one because I hate when people select certain items and they're all Pokeballs or something. And it's like, no, but...
And Drew, I'm not a robot.
Drew, he's not a robot, but he's pretty darn close. Especially if you watch him play arcade games. On my channel, guys, JJ General 1, I have a lot of videos of him doing stuff, especially the repetitive motion things. And this is what he talked about very early in the podcast about having the Asperger's, and the repetitive motion stuff works out for him because that's how arcade games work like that. So like the Down the Clowns and the tailgate tosses and things like that, where it's just a repetitive motion over and over and over again, and he can just hit all those jackpots. But Mike, seriously, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a lot of fun. Probably ran a little bit longer than I thought it was going to, but you guys know we get into these stories, we get into these conversations, and it just kind of flows. So I thank you guys for listening all the way through this. At the end, if you have, don't forget to check me out, guys. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter and my Facebook fan page. Everything's JJ General 1. Very easy to find. If you guys want to check out Mike, like I said, search MewTwoStruckBack, YouTube. I don't think he has any of the social media platforms out there. Mike, do you? Twitter or Instagram or anything?
No Instagram, no Facebook. I mean, I have an account, but I never use it.
Okay. So if he wanted to, if you guys want to shoot him a message or something, you can do it on YouTube. Just send him a message on there, or on Reddit. Just look up, go to Reddit again. That's REDDIT, and look up MewTwoStruckBack. It's him. Especially if you go through the post history and see a lot on Dave and Buster's or on Smash Brothers, you'll see him there. So
there's like a solid page of me trolling the Smash Brothers forum within the last 3 days.
That's because of the major announcement of everybody
back
in Smash Brothers as of the time of this recording. So And actually, I think E3 is going on right now as we're recording
yeah,
this.
they just finished up.
Oh, okay. They just finished up. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Again, I am Joe, also known as JJ General One. You guys have been listening to the All About the Arcades podcast. Again, my guest today was Mike Lucas from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, also known as MewTwoStruckBack. And again, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who supports this podcast, everyone who listens, everyone who watches the videos on YouTube, follows us on our social media pages and all that stuff. But thank you guys so much for listening, and as I always say, I will catch you guys next time.